Hello there, and welcome to the Tartan Daily for what is sadly going to be the last time. It's been quite the adventure in the tournament with Scotland during this Euros, but that adventure is now over. And the Tartan Daily was a good name until one day I had internet problems, then another day I had internet problems, and it's not been quite daily over the last couple of days. But I will admit, the original sort of day that I missed just after the kind of Croatia game, I was thinking, it took me till last night till I was really ready to face things and talk about them in a kind of measured way. So, sorry about that. And then my internet completely failed last night. I was on another podcast and it just died a death. So hopefully it holds up. And joining me as the man to do the ratings, as has been the case during this tournament, is Mr. Stefan Carlin of the Stefano Talks. The Stefano Talks. Get my intonation right. How you doing, Stefan?
Yeah, listen, I'm not too bad. I feel like I've had enough time to digest Tuesday night, but I'm sure we'll get into it. But yeah, I'm feeling good. Apart from the weather, I mean, I look outside my window right now. It's overcast. It's dull. It's dreary. Scotland.
Dreich. Aye, I'm feeling a bit dreich as well. Normally when I jump on podcasts, I've always got that kind of thing that I'm doing stuff, so I'm really energetic and all that. I've not got that with Scotland now. I'm just ready to go, right? Let's put it to bed. It's done. But the one thing that I'm not doing is, I'm seeing all these people, I'm seeing Steve Clark out tweets. Get a hold of yourself, man. It's embarrassing. That is absolutely embarrassing. What are they folk playing at?
I think Scott Brown hit the nail on the head. He called them armchair Jose Mourinho's. People can say what they want about Steve Clark. And listen, people make good arguments about how, he didn't, for the Czech Republic game, he didn't choose probably the right team. He didn't go for the right formation, the right tactics. He didn't get it spot on that game. I can accept that. But then look at the performance he gave against England at Wembley. And people were saying he's a hero for getting a draw. And even the performance against Croatia, I don't think he got anything wrong, to be honest. I think he got the subs.
I think he did. Right. Do you want me to tell you what I think he got wrong? And I don't know if this was him or if it was the players, right? Was where the low block was. Right? Because the low block was, I agree, play a low block. You've got 5 at the back. That's fine. Don't make the area that you press from your 25-yard line. Make it the 35 or 40-yard line. You're at home, for goodness sake. So that was the one major gripe that I would have, is I think we sat far too deep. We invited the first goal. We invited the second goal, despite it being a moment of absolute genius. And the third one was just the game was a bogey by that point, to be honest.
I see your point. I can accept that we were perhaps a bit too high, sitting a bit too deep, rather. But I mean, in all aspects of the performance, I think that's probably the only thing he got wrong, and I still don't see the whole performance at the Euros as enough for people to be calling for Steve Clark's head. We're Scotland, for goodness sake.
Easy, mate.
What did people expect? We haven't been to a major tournament in 23 years. We beat Serbia on penalty. What were we expecting? Were we expecting McTominay and Hanley to be Beckenbauer? Were we expecting to all of a sudden go on a run where instead of having Shea Adams up front, we've got World Cup winning Thomas Muller? I don't know what people were expecting. Yeah, looking at the group, we probably could have qualified from the group stage. It's probably our best ever chance to qualify from the group stages. But I think bold expectation set a lot of people up for failure. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I just think you have to sort of keep have a little bit of a reality check in the back of your mind and say, we are only Scotland and there is room for improvement, and this team will improve over the years. This will not take 23 years to get back to a major tournament, but we need to remember we were punching above our weight. Let's be honest. And that Croatia game proved as much, because although they weren't the side they were 3 years ago, they had Luka Modric passing the Scotland team about like a packet of Bassett's jelly babies. That's how easy it was for him. It's how easy it was to solve the game.
He is just amazing, mate. Like an unbelievable footballer. And one of them footballers that because his game's know that based in mobility, like he doesn't really need. He's one of those players that genuinely doesn't need that much mobility even in the modern game because he just bosses it through what he does up there and what he does down there, and that for me is one of the things that I would take. I mean, there's loads of things to point out. Now, number one, I think we did not get the rub of the break injuries or the rub of the green injuries wise with a lot of the tournament. So missing Kieran Tierney going into the opener was massive, totally destabilised things, made Steve Clark kind of rethink it in a way that wasn't good. And one of the good byproducts is I think for the World Cup qualifiers, we'll go back to McTominay, Hanley, Tierney when they're fit at the back, which I think is better than McTominay's a better playing at the back for Scotland than in midfield. And I think this tournament has helped solidify that fact. But we got an injury to Kieran Tierney at the worst time. We got an injury to Billy Gilmore at the worst time, and we got an injury to Grant Hanley at the worst time. So that's point number one. Point number two, the Czech Republic and Croatia played their best games against Scotland. Now, you can argue, yes, Scotland maybe allowed them to play their best games, but hey-ho, they did, and I think both of them will, particularly Croatia, could maybe do a wee bit later in the tournament if they play at the same level that they did at Hampden Park. But I think as well, another thing was like the Hampden groundsman made it like a really slick surface. That to me is just giving Luka Modric like the keys to play his best possible game. So that struck me as a bit odd, and Scotland players were fawing about at the start of that game. But yeah, I think if you look at the whole thing, there was wee bits of bad luck happened at the worst possible times. That said, I do think Scotland were the architects of their own downfall, and that they just became reined in and penned in at the wrong times in games, with the exception of the England game. And also for me, I mean, there's also for a long time been the great should we play at Hampden or not debate, and for all the history that Hampden possesses, I think we were seeing, and don't get me wrong, it was only 12,000, and it was rocking. 12,000 sounded like 120, brilliant, but Hampden Park does not seem to bring out the best in Scotland, I don't think. So I think there's another debate to be had there, but that's probably a debate for another day. What we're going to do today is just look at the tournament as a whole, what we can take from it moving forward at the end. But I mean, that's my overall assessment of it. I'm glad that we were here. If you told me we were getting 1 point, I would have wanted that against England. And we got a goal. We got that moment where we got a goal at a major tournament. So I know that all sounds really defeatist and really sort of happy clappy, but I don't care. I think they deserve the benefit of the doubt right now. There's loads of questions moving forward. We need a goal scorer badly. Lyndon Dykes, as we'll probably come on to talk about the players, and I imagine when we do the ratings, we'll give a rating based on the game, but we'll probably give an appraisal based on the tournament as a whole. Lyndon Dykes is not the answer. He's an option, but he's not the long-term answer leading the line. We need a goal scorer. And sorry, chime in, mate.
I was just going to say, I think it's been one of the most obvious factors from this tournament is that Scotland have had a multitude of chances to score goals, but they've not had that one player, bar Callum McGregor, that has put the ball into the back of the net. Lyndon Dykes is a great option if you're wanting to have someone run off him, because he can contain the ball, he can head the ball on, he can bring it down. Shea Adams can virtually do the same, but you need someone to run off and score. And people slate Lyndon Dykes because he didn't do, I suppose, his own job, and I've been partial to that myself. I don't think I've rated him over a 5 in the previous 2 ratings that we've done. So I can see that point of view. But yeah, listen, we really need a striker, and it just sort of makes me angry that Lee Griffiths, who is a born goal scoring machine, hasn't been fit for the last 3 years. Because see if Lee Griffiths is fit, you've seen what he did against England. He can score goals. I know in his 22 appearances for Scotland, he scored 3 goals, and it took him 19 games to get those 3 goals. Or so a stat said. I'm just pulling that from my head. I believe that's right. But I think a fit Lee Griffiths playing consistently for Celtic could have been Scotland's answer, but that's not on Scotland. That's on Lee Griffiths. I think Neil Lennon was speaking today about Lee Griffiths and how terrible his fitness level's been and his commitment to actually playing football. So it's just disappointing. I think he would have been a good answer, but then I don't think we've seen a lot of Kevin Nisbet. Kevin Nisbet's a goal scorer, but
I don't know. I'm not convinced he's an international player. I was impressed with what I saw in the Luxembourg game, and he's only had a couple of wee chances at the Euros, but he's got a lot.
The goal against Holland. The goal against Holland.
Oh, sorry, that was what I meant. In the Dutch game, but that was actually what I meant. Sorry, he's in the Dutch game he was really good. He got the goal, but it wasn't just that. I thought his hold-up play and his link-up was excellent. There was one time in particular where he had 3 players kind of bearing down on him, took a lovely wee touch out his feet, kept the move going, and stuff like that. That's the kind of thing that Lyndon Dykes did not do half as well at this tournament as he can. I can almost forgive him for missing chances and that sort of side of it, because I don't necessarily think that's his strong suit. But his inability to make the ball stick up front and bring other people into the game was where Lyndon Dykes really let Scotland down. But yeah, we need a goal scorer. I think the good thing is Nathan Patterson, it's a big question whether he's going to get regular football anywhere. I'd like to see him, if he's not going to play in front of Tavernier at Rangers, then let's get him a move. Let's get him somewhere where he's developing and playing regularly, because I think that's important. But I think you can see he's the future at right back. And then in goals is a massive question for me, because you've got the golden generation of keepers is sort of going to be finishing. David Marshall, Craig Gordon, and Alan McGregor have all given brilliant service to Scotland, but I don't see a natural successor of that level, or even close to that level, really coming through. So I think that's the other big question. So it's at both ends of the pitch.
I've got a shout to that, in fairness, for a goalkeeper. Liam Kelly, Motherwell, Queen's Park Rangers. I think he had a great spell at Motherwell, and I actually touted him to be in the squad ahead of John McLaughlin. So I think we've got a good option there. And
Clark as well, a lot of people fancy. But I'm not convinced by either of those. Kelly, I think, he's quite good at the modern goalkeeper bit, like moving the ball and that sort of side of things. But I mean, in Marshall, and I think you saw it in the Croatia game, he made 3 brilliant saves, and 2 of them were where he anticipated the play and got out quickly, which 36 is very impressive. And I think what you're seeing is you've got a class shot stopper in David Marshall. Yeah, and we're going to miss him when he goes.
But I still think he's got about 4 years left in him. I'm not being funny. You see,
I don't disagree. Actually, I definitely think he can be the keeper for the Qatar World Cup qualification campaign, and hopefully, if we get there, the Qatar World Cup. But I just think we've got to be having kind of half an eye in the future as well. Yeah,
no, 100%. But I mean, look at Gigi Buffon. He's 42, and he's still playing football. I think he's just signed a 2-year deal with Parma. His boyhood.
By the way, that move is awesome, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's one of those moves that just makes you warm and fuzzy. And by the way, those Italians, how lucky are they? Buffon hits sort of his late 30s, and then Donnarumma comes through.
Donnarumma at 16 hits. The sort of papers. Listen, they'd Sirigu as well. They've had a class goalkeeping. They've been rich in it. So have the Germans. I mean, look at Manny Neuer. Going strong. His successor. People would say Ter Stegen or Leno, but I would put Nubel up there. Signed for Bayern, virtually coming through in Manuel Neuer's footsteps. So I think we do need to keep an eye for the future. I think it's where one area I did think we have a golden generation of talent. We've got Billy Gilmore, Nathan Patterson, David Turnbull, Kieran Tierney, Robertson, McTominay, Adams, McGinn, McGregor, all players that can still play for Scotland for the next 10 years. So it's just a case of finding goalkeeper to sort of.
I think that's what I kind of meant as well. What I was thinking about, like Marshall and a goal scorer, is like what you've got to look at is maximising the timeline of those names that you said there. That generation of Scotland players, and the good thing is even the likes of John McGinn and stuff are still pretty young, and all of the people that you would be looking to be the kind of standard bearers for the future for Scotland in the various areas of the team, they've all got at least another couple, maybe 3 qualification campaigns left in them. So I think that's important. I think the way that Steve Clarke's managed it during this tournament, particularly after the criticism following the opening game, it's really, really, I think that's important as well, because I think he gave his wholehearted backing to the players to the point of being pretty abrasive to some of the press. And I was actually quite happy. I mean, even as a journalist, I thought, fair play to you, mate. I would probably have done the same, because that's where he becomes a bit like a club manager, isn't it? It's more about managing for the long term, you know? And that's the other thing, like, I do get the impression that Steve Clarke is looking long term, because people would say, oh, well, why did fling Billy Gilmour or Nathan Patterson and whatever? But I think what he's thinking is, let's protect these boys, you know what I mean? Yeah. And they'll get their chances, so make sure that when they do get them, they can take them. And with Billy Gilmour, that absolutely happened. And I do think it's a totally different game as well as Croatia played, right? I think it's a totally different game if Billy Gilmour plays, because you're no changing the 11 then. And it's one of the most simple things in football, right? And this happens at any level of the game. If you put a new player in, even one, then everybody else is thinking. It's not like they're on autopilot and just thinking we go again. It's like, so how do we incorporate this new player? What's going to change the way we play? Obviously, Stuart Armstrong's a different type of player. But I think if we'd been able to keep a settled 11 for that game, then I think we could have had a much better crack at it. And so that's a wee bit of a disappointment. But
I just quickly want to touch on what you were saying there. I think as a journalist, and by the way, this is a phrase I'm going to use for a wee while, just as qualifying as a journalist. As a journalist, seeing Steve Clarke, come out hitting, he really had his back against the wall, but he came out swinging for his players. And I'm going to say again, as a journalist, it's something I love to see, because I think you listen to media conferences and journalists ask difficult questions. I want, if I'm asking a difficult question, I'm wanting the person I'm asking that question to come out firing. I don't want them to back down from it. I don't want them to give a stereotypical sort of, same old answer. I want someone to come out swinging, and that's what Steve Clarke has did, and it's just something I love to see. And I think his players will have appreciated that, to see that, they weren't getting thrown under the bus, because I think we've seen time and time again, maybe over the last season, maybe at Celtic, the manager has come out and put his players under the bus, which isn't great for morale. So I think that's one area where Steve Clarke really excels, is that he has a belief in his players, and he'll come out and fight for them, and knowing that when he's fighting for them, they will go out there and fight for him. So it's a sort of win-win scenario for him. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying is what I was trying to really get off with.
No, that's fair enough, man. Like, I think there's an importance to that. And without any further ado, then let's get into the ratings. I'm going to try with my I got a standard grade maths, and I got a 1 for it, which is the best mark you can get for anyone that doesn't know how standard grades work. I've always said, other than my media law, that is the hardest exam I've ever worked for. You know what I mean?
Oh, media law is I'm going to be learning a little bit more of that in the postgrad, but listen, I'm not looking forward to it, because doing previous media law has been brutal. I got a B for it, and I worked for a good month and a half of solid studying. Difficult. Anyway, nobody cares about that. People care about our ratings, mate. Let's talk about David Marshall against Croatia. Listen, I can't fault David Marshall at all for Croatia. I think he was unlucky with the goal, primarily because I don't think the defence did their job for the second phase of that sort of attacking play. The ball came in, headed down. David Marshall's just wanting his defenders to get in there, block it, scoop it. They didn't, so he was left very uncut. He made a decent attempt to save it, but ultimately had no chance. Croatia broke through in the second half, and he made a fantastic save where he came out, and you're thinking, no, don't come out, but he had to come out. And made great saves. So listen, I don't think he did much wrong. I think he was unfortunate. He had no chance for the Modric goal. He had no chance for the first goal. And, Ivan Perisic's little flicked header left him with no chance. So I don't think he did anything wrong. I think he made some great saves that kept Scotland in the game. So on that basis, a 7.
I can see that. Usual rule of thumb here, much the same assessment, his performance. I think Scotland... I was going to say get battered, but I'm not making English people happy enough by using that particular turn of phrase. I think Scotland lose more heavily if David Marshall is not in goals. I even think if Craig Gordon, who I think is a decent keeper still, is in goals, he's not getting out to challenge that in the same way. He's not. It's funny how David Marshall, his lower centre of gravity, is actually a more imposing presence, I think, than a one-on-one. Mm-hmm. So I'm giving him an 8 because I think he was Scotland's best player in the day by a distance. So I'm giving him an 8. But as usual, I am rating 1 point higher than you, mate, because that's the way we tend to do things. But let's see if that remains true for as many this time. Stephen O'Donnell.
Again, don't think he did much wrong. I think he got forward when he had to. I can't say he did much wrong. Played far better than he did in the Czech Republic game. Didn't play as well as he did in the England game, but listen, he didn't do much wrong. He came up against a very strong, I think it was Perisic. Was it Perisic? Yeah, I think it was Perisic. I think he kept him at bay quite a bit. He didn't allow him the chance to get inside and have a shot. He kept him very well at bay. So I think a 6 would be fair.
Ooh, interesting. I'm going a 5. I think he regressed again massively. I think he. I mean, I was going to go a 4, but then I thought that was just too emotional. But he seemed to be. There was one point where the crowd were getting a wee bit. Because his limitations and his ability, the crowd were getting a wee bit tired and he tried to force it. Like he was forcing a pass inside for a quick 1-2 and it just was not the option. What he should have done is played an easier pass and tried a run beyond. But I could tell it was because the crowd, he was hearing the crowd and it was having an effect on him. Yeah. And I mean, that's no that the crowd were bad. I think the crowd were really good, and especially at the end, I like the send off that they gave them. I mean, I think most countries go out like that at home, then they're getting booed off. You know what I mean? So I was quite proud of the Scotland fans for that. Robert Elston makes a good point in the chat. He says, I don't think there's much between Scotland and Wales, except Wales have their world-class player at the top of the pitch. I disagree with Robert, spot on. And that's what Scotland needs. We need a player in that area. Now, Billy Gilmour's still a deep-line midfielder, but if we could just get one special talent that occupies the opposition third, then I think we've got a right good team now. I really do. And I think that's what we've got to kind of hope. But back on to O'Donnell, I think he regressed. I think he's obviously got limitations in his play, but I also don't think he did the defence. You say he didn't do much wrong. I don't think he did much right. I think the defensive side of the game passed him by at times. I think he was standing off. He was tucking in too deep. And I just felt he went backwards in this performance. So it's a 5 for me, and that's just. I mean, it could have been a 4, but that I'm trying to be a bit more measured. So I made it a 5. But flip the script there. I'm the one that's going 1 less than you with the rating for that. Scott McTominay, I'll start on him. I think McTominay, he's better for Scotland at the back than he is in midfield. I think that's certain. Yeah. I thought the bit at the end, do you remember that run he made, maybe with about 5 minutes to go, where he went on a rampaging long burster into the opposition box? Yeah. So see if you look at what Italy are doing in the tournament, when one of their fullbacks, say Spinazzola, goes running, they change into a back 3. Why does Scotland no do that but become a back 4 when one of our fullbacks goes, or one of our centre-backs even goes? Because playing that 5 at the back can work really well because you've got a spare defender running for deep. And I would just like to have seen Scott McTominay and Kieran Tierney, for that matter, do that earlier. I would like to have seen that. But I think the defence overall was in disarray at times against the Croatia game. I thought we just were so passive, we let them play. And also in the midfield area, the press just wasn't good enough. And even if the defence are sitting low, you've still got to make sure that the start of your press has to be at the very least starting on the 30-yard goal area. We were just sitting in deep and letting them play run about our 18-yard box. And that's what led to the first goal. It's what led to the second goal. And it just wasn't good enough. We weren't getting hit in transitions, but I think Croatia had the ability to break us down by sort of picking at the lock rather than relying on the pace. So I just felt tactically that was a bit off as well. Whether that landed the manager or the players, you could probably say I would apportion blame to both. Yeah. McTominay, I'm giving a 6, mate. I think he was A bit like you. I don't think he did too much wrong. I think he was fairly strong. I think he was one of our better defenders. But if you look at that opening goal, when Perisic nods it back across, that's him or O'Donnell's man. So I think you can say that, look, regardless of which one of them you point at there, it's their area of the pitch. It's their fault. And I don't think he did enough playing out for the back or bringing that composure. I can only remember 2 or 3 instances of that. So it's a 6 for me, but I think that's very, very fair, actually. I think it could be less, maybe.
The thing that, for Scott McTominay is, at the start, I was quite worried. I think he misplaced a pass or 2. And that, for me, isn't like Scott McTominay. I always liken him to Paul Scholes, because growing up, I was watching Paul Scholes. I never seen Paul Scholes give the ball away once. Anytime I watched him, phenomenal footballer, and I liken him to Scott McTominay because he's very much the same. You don't see him giving the ball away that too much, but there's a couple of times he did give the ball away, and it became frustrating because he is one of your ball playing centre backs. You've seen him carry the ball, and it's something he can do, and it's something I would like to see him do more of. So it was just frustrating from that point of view. But defensively, didn't do much wrong. Didn't have an awful lot to do. For the first goal, I think it's more O'Donnell. O'Donnell has to be on Perisic, but he's there and about. He could have tried, but listen, I don't think it's his man. So I'm not going to apportion any blame to him for it. But I think overall, on the basis of it, a 5. Yeah, I think that's probably
I get that.
Marked him, but I think that's fair.
Aye, I think that's fair, mate. I could have easily given him a 5, but I've tried not to give the blame too much. Now, Grant Hanley, I'm rating him at the same level as the other players, even though he obviously played a lot shorter a period of time. And during that period, I thought he was strong. There was one bit in particular, no long before he went off, where he just shrugged somebody out of the ball down the flank, covering for Scotland. And I think you saw, by the way, when Scott Mckenna came on. Right, well, we're going to get to him, but you can see how absolutely vital Grant Hanley's mobility is to that Scotland defence. Because Scott McKenna comes on, 30 seconds, he gets a yellow card, whereas Hanley's been the stopper throughout the tournament and done really well at it. So I think he's been good. The one thing is Grant Hanley did play one poor pass, which led to Croatia having a chance to run on goal. So for that reason, he goes down for a 7 to a 6 for me. But I don't think Grant Hanley at all was the architect of Scotland's downfall. And I think, if anything, he's one of the players that comes out of this tournament with real credit. Yeah,
listen, when Grant Hanley's name was called to the Scotland squad, I went, Jesus, suffering. You know what? Because I was like, Grant Hanley, synonymous with failure with Scotland.
As an Norwich fan, I knew that he was a better player now. But I can understand most of Scotland felt like you, mate.
I do bow to your superior level of knowledge on Grant Hanley, but I genuinely was like, crikey, man, if Grant Hanley's the answer, what on earth is the question? Because I didn't see him having a great impact. But listen, I love having that sense of someone proving me wrong, because I love proving people wrong. So for Grant Hanley to prove me and the rest of the doubting, support wrong, I'm happy for him, because it was a stellar campaign from Grant Hanley. Can't word it any more than that. Was strong against the Czechs, was strong against the team in the south of Scotland, and was incredibly strong against Croatia before he had to go off. One bad pass, as you mentioned, but listen, stellar campaign from him. As we've done in previous ratings, anybody that's either been subbed on earlier, subbed on late, they get a fair rating of 5. For me, Grant Hanley falls into the same category on the campaign, on the whole of the game. He wasn't on for long, but when he was on, he was good. But obviously not as sensational he would have been. Had he been on all game, I would probably inclined to give him a 7 or an 8, knowing how strong he would have been for us. But I think a 5 is fair in the time that he played.
That's your way of doing it. Your 5 is my 6. So I think I'm a bit closer to a kind of Football Manager type number. with it. Kieran Tierney, I'll go first again. I think KT, I mean, there's no doubt he's absolutely vital for Scotland, but I didn't see enough of the kind of things that make him special. He got caught out of position even a couple of times, but being Kieran Tierney, he managed to fix it before anything bad happened, whether a challenge or forcing somebody out wide. In terms of just instinctual defending, Kieran Tierney's, I mean, since he was 16, he knew whether to press somebody or stand off. Like, it's just something he just has. It's an innate ability in him. So, I mean, almost kind of unfairly, I expect that of him. That's the bare minimum you get for Kieran Tierney. I expected more in terms of knitting the play out and helping us play out to the back. I expected more in terms of bombing on beyond Andy Robertson and offering an outlet on the left or on the inside of the left. And I didn't see enough of that for Kieran Tierney. But because his defensive work is so resolute, consistent, even though there were a couple of wee flickers at no being quite right, and I think definitely he was someone who, when Scott McKenna came on, just there wasn't that same sense of understanding between the three, I felt. But Tierney gets a 6 for me.
Again, I'm similar to what you were saying. I think he caught a position a couple of times, but Kieran Tierney fashion, sprinted back, made sure that it wasn't an issue. But I didn't see enough of the Kieran Tierney factor that we're used to. He wasn't as majestic as he normally is. He wasn't as silky as he normally is. And overall, I didn't see enough from him. We spoke about the dovetailing between him and Robertson. Thought it was, flourishing quite well, but didn't see enough of it on Tuesday. So I think similar to Big McSauce, a 5.
Fair play. Wholeheartedly get that. Andy Robertson, the captain. Now, I should say I'm almost inclined to knock his rating up by 1 or even 2 based on the wee thread of tweets that he put out. I thought it was brilliant what he said in terms of, I'll just find them and read them out actually. Last night, I think everyone's seen now, see when it comes to the way Scotland has responded to this whole tournament. I mean, when I'm driving about in the motor, everywhere I don't drive. When I'm having someone else drive me about in the motor, I'm seeing nothing except Scotland tops from about 70% of the people that I'm seeing round about in the street. Men, women, boys, girls. Brilliant to see. And I think the way that we've supported our team for the most part, obviously we mentioned at the start the fans that are giving it Steve Clarke out and all that, get hold of yourselves. And to be honest, I've seen quite a few journalists as well, just dying to have a go, dying to be critical. And it's do you know what? Give them the benefit of the doubt. If Steve Clarke hasn't moved, I mean, he's moved it on to get us to this point. If the team's not getting better again in 18 months' time, then maybe start asking, right, is this still moving forward? Is this still on a positive trajectory? At that point, you can maybe raise questions. But at this point, it's ridiculous to be critical. And anyone who's saying we've got enough quality that we should be going here and competing and really going toe-to-toe with all of these big teams, I think is wrong. I think we really lifted it for the England game, and I think there were elements of the performance. I think we were probably, as I say, too low in terms of where we located ourselves in the pitch against part of the time against the Czech Republic, and definitely most of the time against Croatia. But other than that, I think for the most part, a lot of the ingredients were there. You've got a goal scorer, you don't get key injuries to Tierney, Gilmer and Hanley. And I think there's a chance we go through that group. So, that's where I stand on it. And I'll let you come in, and then I'm going to read Andy Robertson's tweets. I
think for we spoke about Steve Clarke earlier, but I think for the journalists that are sort of, calling for his head, it's so typical of Scottish football. And I say this, and I mean this way, for the bottom of my heart, I genuinely mean this. We are far too negative a country. In my opinion, I came off of social media on Tuesday night after the Croatia game, looking at some of the stuff, and I'm thinking this is utter drivel. There are positives to take from this campaign. Look at the positives. Stop being negative. There's no wonder why people come off of Twitter with their head absolutely in the gutter, because people talk absolute mince. And listen, don't get me wrong, I talk mince quite a lot on Twitter, but at least I try to look at the positives before the negatives and address them, because I would rather be positive about Scotland and say, look at where we can improve and talk about the positives that can come from that, rather than, listen, we should have done this and we should have done that. And if hindsight was great, if hindsight, if we all had hindsight, it'd be absolutely brilliant. But far too negative, and journalists for me in this country, specifically around Scotland, can be too negative.
I think you have a go. Like, it almost seems to me, and by the way, I see a discrepancy between broadcast journalists and print journalists, and I think the print journalists are just dying to pen something really negative, and I just don't see the point. Like, I really don't.
Build the game up, like that's
exactly. That is exactly it, Stefan. Build the game up. Don't pull it down. Yep. Have that sort of knowledge that people read your stuff. Their opinions are influenced by your stuff. So if that's the case, right, why not do something that is opining in a positive way, or at least rather than going, oh, this is wrong, he's rubbish, whatever, right? Look at the criticism Stephen O'Donnell got. Now, it was merited from a football point of view, and that he had a really poor game, right? And the fact that he's got limitations as a footballer were clear for all the world to see. He'll know himself he's had a bad game, right? But in this day and age, the fact that he was pilloried so readily, that had a complete effect on that guy. And you could see that. And when he came out after the England game, it was almost, you almost saw the sadness in his eyes a wee bit. And that's not the way it should be. This should be the highlight of his career. And I'm not sure at the end of his career he'll necessarily reflect all that positively on his major tournament that he had with Scotland. So that's sad. That shouldn't be the way it is. And fans on Twitter is different from people who have actually got the privilege of sort of opining and writing for these institutions. So I think, you're absolutely right. Build it up. Don't pull it down.
Yeah. Who are we on rating? Andy Robertson? You said we're going to...
I'm going to give the Andy Robertson tweets. I'm going to give you a question from my mate Craigie Byrne, who pointed out that I do drive a moped, if not a car. So thanks for that, Craigie. He said people are describing Steve Clarke as a dinosaur, etc. Do you agree with that? So I'll let you feel that one, Stefan.
No.
I like those tweets.
I don't, because a dinosaur, comes to me as outdated, something that, is very old. Okay, I think Steve Clarke's maybe in his mid-50s. Okay, you can argue that is pretty old, but no, I don't think he's a dinosaur. I think he can be a little bit stubborn with his choices. I think he has his favourites. I think that's similar to what Gordon Strachan had. But no, I don't agree with terms of dinosaur, because I think he's the only coach in 23 years that's been able to get Scotland anywhere close to a major tournament, let alone get us to a major tournament. So no, people that are calling him a dinosaur were singing his praises back in November and wanting to have his babies. So let's take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt and just accept that Scotland have their limitations. They weren't going to win the Euros. They were in a tough group with teams that were no mugs, and they did well. They played within their means, and they punched to an extent above their weight against England. So no, I don't think he's a dinosaur.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. My kind of view on that is, look at how innovative he's been with the right centre back and the midfielder at right centre back and the left back at left centre back. And when that operates at its full capacity, just how intuitive that is as a tactical setup. So on that basis, to call him a dinosaur is nonsense, absolute nonsense. And the type of football he's trying to play is progressive. It's not in any way hoofball or just relying on things. We're trying to play through the phases. Yes, we vary up on occasion, we have to. And I think if Lyndon Dykes is a better tournament, then Scotland have a better tournament. But I think dinosaurs, I mean, it's one of these terms people love to throw around, but it's nonsense. Applying that to Steve Clarke, absolute nonsense. Get a hold of yourselves. Now, I'm going to read those Andy Robertson tweets. He said, where to even start? I suppose the first thing to do is say that we're sorry for falling short in the end. We desperately wanted to make even more history, but we didn't quite get there, and it hurts. Seeing the entire country not only following what we've done and supporting us, but lifting us every step of the way made a big difference. for the incredible support of the Tartan Army to the kids in the street wearing Scotland shirts. We felt your love and been inspired by it. To captain this country and these boys means the world to me, and the feeling I've had leading them out in a tournament is impossible to describe. What matters now is that we do all that we can to ensure that this is the start of a wonderful journey rather than the end. We want more. We want to qualify for more tournaments, and we want to make the people of this magnificent country even prouder. We will give everything we have to make this a reality. Scotland, it's been a pleasure. Andy Robertson, reading that was a pleasure, and you have been a pleasure, mate, even though I'm going to criticise your display against Croatia momentarily. But I loved every word of that, the whole sentiment, the balance of it. I just thought it was spot on.
I liked it. It's the mentality you want from your captain, to say that we want more, because he is right. If the players want more, the fans obviously want more. Everybody's going in the right direction. Things can only go up for Scotland, and under the captaincy and leadership of Andy Robertson, I think Scotland can. Don't get me wrong, I've been critical of Andy Robertson being a captain. Said that the reason he's a captain is because he plays next to Van Dijk at Liverpool, because he's in a solid defence. But the performances he's given at this tournament have, to me, been the qualities of a captain that leads, and everybody in that team behind him. You can tell that.
Mm-hmm. Aye, that's it. He's looked like a leader of men. I think, obviously, you get the captaincy at quite a young age to be your country's captain, and that was by virtue of everything you said. But he's looked every inch a Scotland captain, and he carries himself like a Scotland captain. He looks like a Scotland captain. I'm behind him for the entirety of his tenure as a Scotland skipper. And when you think of some of the folk that have worn that armband in the past, I'm really happy to see Andy Robertson wearing it, and I'm looking forward to that adventure that he's talking about, and that he and the team can take us on, hopefully. That said, against Croatia, he didn't offer enough. I think it should have been his job to try and lift if the tactical instruction for the sidelines not being communicated, it's his job to lift the team further up the pitch. He's got to say to them, because look at the Liverpool team, they're not going to play a line like that, right? Now, granted, Scotland are a completely different kettle of fish, but at the same time, Andy Robertson should be looking at that and thinking, right, we don't have the height to handle this. He's an intelligent guy. He can see that. So he should be saying to them, right, we're in the 20-yard line. The midfielders on the 30-yard line. We do that. We don't ship 3 goals. I'll tell you that right now. We maybe concede 2, but we don't ship 3. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a different game. So I think from that perspective, he could have done more. And he didn't offer enough attacking. He just didn't. And that was a disappointment, because I felt he was really good in the first 2 games in that perspective. So, disappointing for me. Andy Robertson gets a 6.
I think it's similar to the Tierney performance. I don't think we've seen enough of him. I totally agree with your comments about pushing the line further up, because you wouldn't see that at Liverpool. But in fairness, we have Grant Hanley in defence, not Virgil van Dijk. Love Grant Hanley. Not going to take anything away from him, obviously. But
you can't throw shade at him and my channel, mate.
No, definitely not. Look, could have been better. I think his best game was against England. I think everybody's best game was against England. Had that performance carried through, Scotland could have went through. But look, he didn't do too much wrong. He didn't dovetail with Tierney as well as we thought he would. It didn't get enough forward enough. So I think on the same basis, he falls in the same category as Tierney and McSauce. I need to stop saying that, because I'm going to get messages saying stop calling him that. McTominay. It's going to be a 5.
Did you? You gave Tierney a 5 as well, because I forgot to put that down. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Cool. Stuart Armstrong. 1 good cross, 1 good switcher play. Other than that, rotten. Rank rotten. Different type of player for Billy Gilmour, of course, but there was one instance in particular that summed up his performance for me. Stuart Armstrong's in there for the transition moments where he can carry the ball up the park and hopefully do something at the other end. Yeah. One moment I remember him picking the ball up on the left and having a chance to run at them on the counter. He blootered it out of play. And I just thought, aye, right, that sums it up. And I was really, really disappointed by him. Stuart Armstrong's got a law degree, he's a clever boy. So I don't think it was any lack of intelligence or anything like that. It wasn't. And the other thing is, what's at the forefront of my mind is these boys only going out to have a bad game, and that's still at the forefront of my mind. But Armstrong was rank rotten, and I think his performance did very much hold back the amount of threat we could carry, because we were relying on him to come in and do his thing in terms of helping us to carry that threat. So, I mean, I've put him as a 4, but I mean, I think if I was you, it would be a 3. So, I'm very disappointed by Armstrong.
Listen, when Billy Gilmore obviously came out of the equation and we were looking who could we put in, I seen everybody screaming for David Turnbull. I said no, not at all.
No, I was the same. I was backing the Armstrong selection again. By the way, I think Steve Clarke got his team right for what I wanted.
Yeah. He 100% did, because Armstrong was the choice. He's experienced. He played regularly at Southampton, and he has a sort of link up with Shea Adams. A little bit of chemistry there, as there would be. However, the performance I've seen from Stuart Armstrong is a performance I would have expected from someone in the Championship or even League One, because, and I'm talking about the Scottish Championship and League One here, by the way, because it was absolutely awful. It was woeful. Not as terrible as a Championship or League One performance in England. That's a different kettle of fish. But it really wasn't great. I was speaking before the game and I said, look, if Stuart Armstrong comes to play, then Scotland have a chance, because a Stuart Armstrong that comes to play, passes the ball, does not miss a step. You know, he is fantastic. He is a great player on his day. And
he's a force of nature at his best, man.
And he will get a better move to a bigger team than Southampton. But the performance I seen the other day was rank rotten. I was screaming at the telly to get Steve Clarke, to get him off. Yeah, I could have been shouting out my window to get him off. Steve Clarke at Hampden can hear me, because I don't live too far from Hampden, but he just was not at the races. And I think it was a major reason that Scotland, we talk about retaining possession and ball retention and getting your foot on the ball. He kept on giving the ball away. We had absolutely no chance at that. Every time he get the ball, he passed it to a Croatian player. Really, really poor. So I'm struggling to really, be nice here and give him a rating. I'm going to go for a 2. Based
on that, I'm gonna back the courage of my convictions and go with a 3 as well, because he was awful. Callum McGregor, wasn't he brilliant? Was not awful either. Did some of the stuff that Billy Gilmore would have done. Some of that work, he picked up a bit of that slack. But I think overall, he had a pretty bog ordinary tournament, and definitely not the Callum McGregor of 3 years ago in terms of the way that he's playing. However, he likes that end of Hampden, scoring goals with his right foot, and he gave us our goal. So based on that alone, I'm giving him a 7.
I really enjoyed Callum McGregor's performance. I think he really came to life in the England game. Didn't get too many minutes in the Czech Republic game, so can't really talk about that. Really came to life in the England game. Played magnificently well. And then, I don't think he did anything wrong on Tuesday. Maybe a pass or two went askew, but I think, he always played. I think he played to the Callum McGregor that Celtic fans have seen for a while, and I've said to my Celtic supporting mates, I said, listen, see if that Callum McGregor turns up to Celtic next season, there is your captain. That is a guy you're wanting to be your captain. And I think he will be the Celtic captain, but that is your Callum McGregor at best. And just look at the goal he scored, similar to Motherwell in 2018 at Hampden. That ball zipped across the floor, right into that corner. It was a sensational finish.
It was a brilliant goal.
From a tidy, sensational, underrated player. I can't heap all this praise on him and then give him a terrible rating. So for me, Callum McGregor got an 8.
Fair enough. That's very kind, I think, but fair enough. John McGinn lost his superpowers in this tournament a wee bit. That's how I kind of felt about it. I don't think he was on the level that he necessarily could have been. I was expecting more in the opposition box from him. I think there was a kind of half moment against the Czechs that now it feels kind of cloudy in my mind because it was that long ago. It has seemed like such a long week in a bit, hasn't it? Yeah. It's crazy. But I think when I look at it, I'm thinking John McGregor. John McGinn should have been the player that was our goal scoring midfielder. And if you look at the first episode of this run, where it was myself, Andy Barge, and Rory Hamilton, we all thought he would be the guy to get the goals for Scotland. And he really didn't deliver. And I think his tournament was kind of summed up by him going with the wrong foot with that deep hanging cross to the far post. And I don't know. I just feel in a qualification game, John McGinn slots that, or taps it in or does whatever he needs to do. But I just don't think he's been at his best, whether it's fatigue, whatever it is. I don't know if he's been at 100%. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's not in any way saying John McGinn should not be an absolute mainstay in this Scotland team. Of course he should. And there's no question of dropping him. Whereas with Stuart Armstrong, for example, I would be thinking, right, do we really want to include a 29-year-old that's failed to deliver in future squads, or do we want to give a chance to other younger players? So I think there's a debate to be had there, depending on Armstrong's club form. John McGinn should be in the Scotland team, should be starting in the Scotland team, undoubtedly. But he had a poor tournament, and he had a poor game against Croatia that kind of summed up his whole tournament. So, it's a 5 for me. I think he put himself about. He was busy enough, but didn't he do John McGinn things? Lost his balance. It's a 5.
He certainly wasn't super John McGinn, we'll say that. And I don't think he had been super John McGinn since the tournament kicked off. But he's a quality player. He's a tidy player. He knows what he's to do, and he will be in this team for a decade or so to come, maybe more, because he is that damn good to quote Triple H there. But a real good talent for Scotland. However, Croatia didn't turn up. How he missed that chance, I was celebrating. I thought he'd scored. I genuinely thought. I jumped off my seat going, but I could not believe it that he missed it. I was
the same.
It's a guy you want that chance to fall to, and he goes with the wrong foot. It was poor. Listen, you gave him a 5. I can't even go that far. 4 for me. I thought, had that for that chance alone, the going with the wrong foot is inexcusable. A player at his quality should not be doing that. Should have went with the correct foot and scored and gave Scotland hope. So listen, a 4 is the nicest I can be. I really could have been quite harsh and given him a 1, but I think a 4 is ample. I think it's the nicest I can be.
Fair enough. Shea Adams.
Who? Sorry. Did not see him at all.
Right. I think you didn't hear me. I get. Yeah, he didn't do much, man.
No, listen. I'm honest. I'm struggling to think. Did he have it? Did he have a chance? I'm honestly.
Dykes flicked it onto him in about the 4th minute, and he was running at the England defence, and he hit a shot, and we should have had a corner, but he gave a goal kick, I think, and that was it.
Yeah, listen, look, I can't even remember him in that game.
The ref was a goon, by the way, as well. Just on that note, I thought the ref was really poor.
Yeah.
Not as poor as the one in the France-Portugal game last night, but...
Antonio Mateo Lajos, the Scotland-England, don't even get me started on that baldy...
you know what? The days of baldy refs have regressed since Pierluigi Collina, man. Honestly, I've much preferred him. He looked like, I used to have a wee model. Pierluigi Collina looked like, I had a wee model of the mask, and you would push his back and the eyes would pop out. And that's what
that referee for the other day reminded me of, because he was speaking to, I think it was John McGinn he was speaking to, and he gave him the crazy eyes, and I was like, God, you don't want to mess with this Argentinian nut job. But listen, Shea Adams, I honestly, Hodgie, I can't remember anything from him from the game, and for that reason alone, he's getting a 1. That's how low I think he was.
I do remember some things from him from the game. I think he made good runs, just didn't get found because the midfield wasn't as joined up to the attack as it should have been pretty much throughout the game. Him and Dykes didn't combine half as well, but I'm laying that at Dykes' door rather than his. I think his movement was keen enough. I think he definitely offers a new dimension to Scotland, as I said in my wee podium, Ode to Joy, episode 10, for anyone that's not watched it. But or listen to it. I think you're being overly harsh. I could see going as low as a 3, but I'm giving him a 5 because I thought his movement was good, and I don't think the fact that he wasn't involved in the game is necessarily entirely on him. I think it was the rest of the team no combining with him, and that made him isolated at times. So I think Adams is worthy of a 5. Like
I don't normally change my score. I can understand now you mentioned the runs a little bit. I can maybe accept it. So for that reason alone, I will take the one away. I will take it away. I'll give him a 2.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, still a record low for the tournament.
Yeah, I give a 2 today, and I'm sure I've given somebody else. I can't even remember.
I don't think he did. I think he gave Stephen O'Donnell a 3 is the lowest you've gone.
Okay. Right. Well, for that reason alone, I'll give Shea Adams a 3 then.
Aye, I would say it's no worse than Stephen O'Donnell's performance against the Czechs. So I think that's probably fair that you've knocked that up a couple of grade points. Maybe a bit.
I don't normally do that.
No, I know you don't, and I like that you're so. I like that you're so forceful about this. If I'm ever doing a player ratings thing again in future, I'm doing it with you because I enjoy this process with you. Aye, Shea Adams, a 5 for me, a 3 for you. Lyndon Dykes. The biggest disappointment of the tournament for me personally.
Yeah.
I thought coming into it, I mean, I've seldom seen a better performance for a Scotland striker than him against Serbia. Kenny Miller against Italy years ago maybe comes to mind where he was really good, and that was against Nesta and Cannavaro, admittedly. But I thought Lyndon Dykes, I knew that he had limitations. I watched him at QPR last season. He went through a barren run where I think he scored 2 penalties in about 5-6 months. Then he had a decent spell towards the end of the campaign. I thought, good, he's coming into the tournament in form. Then even better than that, he missed loads of chances against Luxembourg, which made me think, good, he's getting all his misses out of the way before the real games start. But he's just been really poor, and he's not done the Lyndon Dykes stuff. He's stretched it and he's put himself about, but that ability to bring the ball down and bring other people into play, he's just not had it. He's just not done it. And now, I mean, Lyndon Dykes would have, other than Robertson and Tierney and maybe the keeper, would have been my first name in the team sheet, along with Mckenna. They would have been the 5 that I think indisputably in any situation you would play, right? Now, Lyndon Dykes is now at the point where I'm thinking, do we even start him? You know, like I think our best iteration at the moment is him and Adams because of the way they can combine. And I kind of expect them to come back in one of the qualifying games and be really good together. And maybe without the pressure of tournament football, get back to just playing their game and getting out their own heads a bit. But we need a goal scorer. Lyndon Dykes is not it. But worse than that, he wasn't an effective target man in this tournament, really. He was all right in the England game, but other than that, I think he's been really, really poor. And for that reason, I'm giving him a 3.5.
Okay. I take on board everything you've said there. I think the only thing from Tuesday that Lyndon Dykes the Lyndon Dykes did well. Sorry, that was a struggle to get out there. Was his touch control was great when he brought the ball down. He could nod the ball on. It was great, but it just wasn't finding anyone. It wasn't the outball he was against Serbia, but he did do some good spots. See where he muscled the Croatian player. The ball wasn't within his control. It was more with the Croatia player, and he sort of wound his way around the Croatian player through sheer brute strength. I thought that was a plus mark, but he didn't do his job. And I've said this, as a striker, you need to do your job, and your job is to score goals. So for that basis alone, for what him and Adams didn't do, and I'm not going to rate him any worse than Adams because he wasn't. They were both going to get 1s, but I will be fair. I'll give him a 3.
Fair enough. I'm surprised you went even lower than me, but I totally understand it, to be honest. Scott Mckenna. So the bit that comes into my head here is, right, again, they're no deliberately being bad. He's just not very good.
Yeah.
And all this talk, remember Aberdeen were wanting 10 million or something for him? Like
7 million from Celtic, I believe.
I mean, nonsense. Absolute nonsense. I watched him in a game a few years ago, no long after he'd established himself in the Dons team against Hamilton. and he did nothing to impress me. Where I thought, like, you're going to be great in future or anything like that. So, I mean, he's kind of. I think he's found his level at Forest if he even manages to survive at that level. I don't think he was good. Obviously, performances summed up, and the absence of Grant Hanley and how key he is was summed up by the fact he get booked about 30 seconds after coming on when a guy got run him and he tugged his jersey just to avoid him running through and goal.
I hadn't even touched the ball, mate. Had not even touched
No, dreadful. And my mate actually used, it's an oft-used turn of phrase, more so normally for attacking players, but he just went, he's a cart horse. And I thought, that's absolutely bang on. That is exactly what he is.
You know how England fans and United fans call Harry Maguire a fridge? It's the term I'm going to use for Scott McKenna because he has the mobility of a fridge, and not just any fridge. One of your great fridges. You see one of those expensive ones for curries.
Huge one, aye.
One of those huge ones with the freezer and the dispensable ice and all that. He is a huge fridge because it's heavy, it's a ton weight, and it doesn't go very fast. And then when you look inside and you're thinking, there's not a lot of space in there. And then you realise, no, maybe it's not the best quality of fridge, although very expensive, not a very quality.
An ice tray, do you think he's got an ice tray, or does he lack the composure to have an ice tray?
No, listen, you look at players like Kieran Tierney, ice in his veins, that boy. I do not think Scott McKenna has that at all in him. Hopeless, for wanting 7 million, let alone 10 million for a player of that quality. No, thank you. But listen, I'm all for Aberdeen trying to bam the English up and try and oversell the Scottish game. All for it, love it. But listen,
good.
Never that quality of player. Didn't play well on Tuesday night. Booked 30 seconds in, didn't even get a touch of the ball, and he took his guy out because he knew he didn't have the legs for him. So, listen, hopeless player, should never have been included in the squad. And I won.
Oof, you're determined to give a 1, aren't you? Another instance of
0.5.
Nah, you're sticking with 1. We're not going towards the realms of 0, mate. I'm putting the foot down there. I would say the other thing about Scott McKenna's display that was just pretty tragic was, see that one where he got the wrong side of his man, despite being 6 foot whatever he is and broad shouldered, right? And he gets the wrong side of his man, and he actually has to kind of dive round him and get the header. And fair play for showing the tenacity to do that, but to actually be in the situation where you get wrong side and when you're facing a set piece in front of your own goal line is just reprehensible in the extreme. So it's a 3 for me, but that's pretty poor for him. I think that's going to bring him to a mean average of 2 for the tournament. Ryan Fraser.
Never. No, listen, Ryan Fraser didn't have the desired impact I wanted him to have. I should have been on earlier, a decent player, but yeah, didn't have the sort of performance you would want. But as with any player that has come on, he's going to get a 5 for me. I'll keep it mid.
Fair enough. Fraser's, I mean, there was that shot he had, and I'm just thinking, if he has that shot when he's playing for Bournemouth, he probably hits the target and makes the keeper work. Instead, in Hampden, it balloons over the bar and probably lands somewhere in the half a mile between the back of the goals and where the stand starts. You know what I mean? Probably a Doug running on it, chasing it down. But I think, just know what we need. You know.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, if it's the Steve Bruce Newcastle effect that's kind of had a regressive sort of effect in his game, but he doesn't look the same player, the same confident player that he was when he was at Bournemouth, and even then he was, a bit part player in the Scotland team a wee bit. And I felt he was the best of our impact substitutes coming into this tournament, and did not have the desired impact in any game. And this one was very much the same as that. So again, I'm going to stick with you this time. I'm going to go with a 5 because I think we needed more. And as I say, like that shot that he had, it was one of those. There was no conviction about it. It was never hitting the target. And I just think at that period in the game, we really needed something. We needed someone to come on and just deliver some hope, you know, and I don't think he did that. So, 5 for me as well. Kevin Nisbet.
Listen, I'm not even going to pretend that I remember Kevin Nisbet coming on, because I don't, but I'm not going to stoop low, because I think coming on as a substitute when you're probably 2-1 or 3-1 down and the game's gone, you're not really going to be able to affect the game that much. So, yeah, I'm going to stick with 5.
Yeah, same thing, same reasons. I know my normal kind of average in that situation is a 6, but I think given the spell in the game that it was, just really wanted to see him make an impact, or try, really make yourself readily available to do so. But also, when you're bringing Kevin Nisbet off the bench in that situation, when the game's already gone, it's a pretty nothing substitution. I mean, if he gets a goal, even just if it comes in off his bum or something, that's good. It's it gives the lad something to build on. I mean, to be honest, I think the goal against the Dutch will give him that anyway and give him a bit of belief, and it'll be interesting to see what his future holds. I would like him to make the right move for him, and hopefully he can build on what's been a good goal scoring campaign, and maybe he can be that answer as a goal scorer. But I think he's got to jump a level as a player before that will be true on the international stage. Definitely the major tournament.
It'll be interesting to see what his move from Hibs is, because with all due respect to Hibs fans, he's too good a player to play for Hibs. If I'm Celtic and I'm Ange Postecoglou, I'm looking at strikers in Scotland and saying the most realistic one we could get could be Nisbet. We have a rather controversial striker that we want off our boots. Let's do a deal with Hibs. Let's offer you money plus this player, and let's make it happen. That would be me. That's how I would do it, because I would want Nisbet and give them a 30-year-old unfit Lee Griffiths could still do a job for Hibs. No disrespect to Hibs, but he genuinely could, because he has a good, as I said earlier, he is a born goal scoring player, so he could be a threat. But for the move for Nisbet, Celtic should probably go for him, but he could go for a better move down south.
I think down south would suit him, to be honest. I'd like to see him go south of the border, because I think it'd be better for him. I think if he gets
up for Norwich.
No. Norwich are Premier League, mate. He's a Championship player at best, or a good League One club. But if you're playing League One, then you're probably not pushing your level up enough to be a Scotland player. I think he'd go to League One and be successful. I think going to the Championship would stretch him, and he'd be struggling to get in a team. But if he gets in a team and gets a run of goals, then good, because that'll be that the Championship is the best place for him to go and develop right now. The English Championship, that is, obviously. So if he gets a move there and goes to a club where he'll get a chance, then that's good, because that will be the best level for him to develop. Scottish Premiership, he can score goals in. He's proved that. That's one step up. He's obviously not an English Premier League player. I mean, he could go abroad, but I'm assuming he'll stay UK based. So on that basis, I'd like to see him get a move to the English Championship, because I don't think he'll play regularly at Celtic either.
Okay.
So that's my thoughts on that. And giving him a rating. I gave him a 5. You gave him a 5. Last of the players, Nathan Patterson. Young lad looked keen. First thought was to go forward. And I get the sticking with Stephen O'Donnell, but as long as Nathan Patterson's playing football next season, he's got to be Scotland's right back for me. I think the time has come. The time is there now just to go, do you know what? Look at what Billy Gilmore did against England. Let's throw these lads in. Let's give them their chance, And I think they're good enough players that even if something doesn't go ideally for them, they're going to bounce back. It's a long career. I don't think you're going to ruin them with one game against somebody like the Faroe Islands or something. Do you know what I mean? So, know that I'm saying Faroe Islands away, which has not been a happy hunting ground in the past, by the way. But we've not got Lee Wilkie playing this time. So, I think I would be inclined to play him for Scotland in future. Came on, and everything that I'm said that Kevin Nisbet didn't do, Nathan Patterson had a wee go at trying to influence things. So he's getting a 6 for me.
Listen, I had doubts about Nathan Patterson coming into this tournament. Did he play enough at Rangers to merit a place? I don't know, but the performance that he gave, he came on, I think he had 11 minutes, didn't put a foot wrong. I think he made one bad pass, but other than that, didn't really put a foot wrong, can't really complain. I think he will be in the Scotland team for a decade to come, probably more. For as long as he is playing football next season, he should be Scotland's number 1 right back. Again, another player that I wanted to prove me wrong, has proved me wrong, all for it. But I'm not going to edge away from my way of doing it. A 5 is as far as I'll go.
As we say, your 5 is my 6. And on that note, Steve Clarke gets a 6 for me. He gets a 6 because I think the team selection was bang on, but I don't think the team played the right way. So I think, as I've said repeatedly on this pod, too deep all the time. If it was his idea to play that low block in the edge of your own box, that's wrong. It's just wrong. Because Croatia are a team that will play round about you, and then we don't have good enough defenders to do that for 90 minutes. So no, I'm no wearing that. I think his team was wasteful in possession at times, which isn't entirely his fault. But I think there were bits. I don't think his substitutions again were really influencing the game enough. I think at the point we're 2-1 down, I don't think he's making enough of a wholesale swap to just try and completely jolt life into the game. You know what I mean? So I think he could have put the calipers on it a wee bit more. I think he could have been better in terms of everything bar his team selection. And it's only the team selection that's knocking it up to a 6 because, once again, I thought he got his starting lineup spot on.
I think he got his starting lineup spot on. I agree with you. I don't think... Tactically, I don't think we were at it. I think we did sit a bit too deep. However, as I said earlier, I don't agree with people saying Clarke out. I think he's still got a lot that he can do for Scotland. I think we wouldn't have been anywhere without him because we were under Alex McLeish. We were getting beat 3-0 off the Kazakhs. We were really, really going nowhere. Fast, as I said, McTominay being brought in under McLeish was probably one of the best things he ever did. Steve Clarke just feels like a breath of fresh air. He's not afraid. He lives by the sword, he dies by the sword. But I put this in the clearest terms that I can possibly put it. I would rather have him in the tent peeing out than outside the tent peeing in. So great coach, will help this team get better. Performance-wise, though, a 5.
Okay. I get that. And I understand where you're coming from with that. So I'm just trying to pull together some average ratings across the tournament for all of the players. So as I go through the process of doing that, I'm just looking at David Marshall. So you gave him a 5, I gave him a 6 for the opening game, then a 6 and then a 7, and then a 7, then an 8. So I think that brings him with you to an average of a 6. To me, an average of a 7 across the 3 games, which I think is in keeping with our general sort of rule of thumb on most things. Stephen O'Donnell, you gave a 3, I gave a 4 against the Czechs, then an 8 and a 9 against England. So I'm just working at the halfway point of that because I'm not very good at that. It's a 6.5 and a 7.5, and then it's back down to a 6 and a 5. So I'm rubbish at the maths in that, but I think that's round about a 4.5 and a 5.5 maybe. The tournament with the England thing juxtaposing it a wee bit. Hendry only played 1 game. I gave him a 4. You gave him a 6. So that's an average of a 5 across the both of us. Grant Hanley got a 7 and a 7, a 7 and a 7, and let's see. A 7 and a 7, an 8 and a 9, and then a 5 and a 6, which obviously was influenced by injury. So that's like over 7 and over 8. So Grant Hanley's probably in line for player of the tournament for us, and I think would be anecdotally anyway. Cooper, you gave a 5, I gave a 6 for the opening game. Robertson, you gave a 7, I gave an 8. Then we both gave 8s for the England game. Then it was a 5 and a 6 this time because we thought he was poorer. But I think it's overall safe to say the skipper played well.
Yeah.
Kieran Tierney got 8s for both of us for the England game. And then you gave him a 5 this time. I gave him a 6, which makes it a 6.5 and a 6. Is that right?
Yeah.
Something like that. Sorry for any mathematicians that are watching this, must be hating me. Armstrong, 6 and a 7 off the bench. Just looking at that then. 6 and a 7 in the opening game, 5 and a 6 off the bench, England, and then really, really poor this time. 2 and a 3. McGregor, 8 from you and a 7 from me. One of the few times you've rated a player higher than me. For the Croatia game, moving backwards this time. England, you gave him a 7 I gave him a 7, and then a 4 and a 5 for the Czech game. I'm only going to do a few more of these. John McGinn, that's an interesting one to look at because I think there was high expectations of him. 5 in the opening game from you, a 6 from me. Then against England, I think we were both a bit kinder, a 7 and a 7. And then a 4 and a 5 this time. Yeah. So that's like just over kind of 5 for both of us. So I think that says a lot. I think if John McGinn has a better tournament, Scotland have a better tournament, don't you?
Yeah. What about Shea Adams? What's his average?
Shea Adams is... Oh, well, he came on in the first game, so that's a 5 and a 6. So I'm considering that a wee bit less. You gave him a 5 against England because I think you were disappointed with the standard of finishing against the English. Yeah. And then you gave him a 3 against Croatia.
Yeah.
So if we bring that substitute appearance into play, then you're giving him a 5, and a 3. So that's an average of, I mean, I would say let's call it 4.
Yeah.
Because the fact the substitute appearance was obviously less important and it was less time. Dykes 3 and 3.5 for the latest game. You gave him a 5 against England. I gave him a 7. I think I was just buzzing. And then the opening game, there was a real discrepancy between the way that we saw that. You saw it as a 3 and I saw it as a 6. That's the biggest discrepancy there's been between us for any single player in any single game. So you've given Dykes a 3, a 5 and a 3, which is pretty damning, man. That's an average of less than 4. So I think what that tells you is, right, where Scotland's problems are, doesn't it?
I shouldn't be rating them.
No, don't be daft, mate. I think Scotland's problems are at the top end of the pitch. And I think that has been wholeheartedly demonstrated by your ratings. And one thing I would say is Jack Hendry and Ryan Christie were the poorest players in the opening game, and they were the 2 that have not featured again. So I think on that basis, I'm quite happy with that. And I think Clark generally got his selections of individuals right, but I think he didn't take advantage either of the 5 subs quite as much as he potentially could have. And I think that's a bit of a disappointment for me, you know. But overall, I think, listen, we got there. We got a point against England. We got a goal at Hampden. That's something.
Yep, no, 100%. Got a draw against probably the team we probably wanted to get points against the most, but
no, absolutely the team we wanted to get points against the most.
Scored. We kept up that tradition of only scoring in the third game, and we broke the fact that Craig Burley is no longer the last player to score for Scotland at a major tournament. That in a win is, that in itself is a win. Craig Burley, he's been dining off that for the last 20 years. Hearing him on Satanta on ESPN, but he can't shut up about it. Now he can, because now it's Calmac. Now Callum McGregor can go for the next 23 years. I was the last guy that scored for Scotland.
Hopefully not 23 years, Stefan.
Definitely not going to be that long.
I hope not.
2 years at the most. We will be in Qatar for the World Cup. And by the way, when the Euros go to Deutschland in 2024, I will be there. I will be there.
Say this, but everyone for Britain's been banned for Germany today. So I'm not necessarily... Hopefully they'll have that lifted. I think that's... I don't know why that is. I can't see why many England fans would go to Germany when the game's at Wembley. But let's just talk briefly about that. Now, England's route to the final's pretty easy if they beat Germany, by the way. It's quite a kind draw that they've got. So we're kind of relying on Yogi Love, are we not?
No, I don't think we are relying on him.
Really?
No, not at all, because we're relying on the fact of how poor Gareth Southgate is, knowing that he's not going to get past. He's not going to get past the Mannschaft. Not a chance.
He's not, right. I think that could be true, but he's not as bad as people are making it. They've not conceded a goal at the tournament. Yes, they've not been brilliant going forward, but if you look at Greece in 2004, right? If you want, England don't have a bang on it. So if you have a good defence, That's the absolute foundation for the start of a good tournament performance, which is something Scotland should maybe reflect on, because
I don't think it's a case of they've had a good defence. I just don't think they've had an attack that's really forced them. You know, you're now going to have guys like Timo Werner, Thomas Muller, you're going to have Kai Havertz, you're going to have Leon Goretzka, you're going to have Leroy Sané, you're going to have Serge Gnabry, you're going to even have guys like Robert Gosens and Joshua Kimmich are going to be coming at this England backline. I don't want to toot my own horn too much. I love Germany. Yeah, I've got family in Germany.
I can hear by the gusto with which she pronounced the names, mate.
That's very great, mate, to be honest, in fairness. I love his pronunciation. Try to follow that way. But listen, Jurgen Klopp is a great coach. You know, the performance yesterday against Hungary, by the way, what a victory in two senses for Germany to qualify, and then obviously for political reasons. But you know,
yeah,
they weren't exceptional yesterday. But even if Germany put that performance on against England, they will win, because England, they're no mugs.
Drawing with Hungary, a performance like that will beat England. Do you think?
Yes, 100%. And I'm not saying that's been biased towards England. 100% not.
I do think the movement of Germany's front players will be the sternest examination England have had so far. But if their defence holds up, then I think they stand a bit of a chance. And that's kind of worrying, to be honest. However, what I will say is we are now at the end of this podcast, as you would probably guess by the wee message I've got along the bottom. Stefan, I'm sure folk have heard where to find you before, and I did say it at the top, but feel free to plug your own channel now, my friend.
I will do. At Stefano Talks on Twitter. We will be starting again in August. I think August the 1st we will be back in action for the podcast, recapping all things Scottish football. But from a personal view, if you want to see me talk rubbish in general, at Mr. Stefan Carlin on Twitter.
Excellent stuff, my man. Thank you very much for spending time throughout this tournament. It's been good. It's been a pleasure for me to do the Tartan Daily, almost daily for most of the time. Internet issues kiboshed it one day, but I made up for that. We've been doing 2 podcasts on the one day, on that particular day. And then, to be honest, after the Croatia game, then I've just had to have a wee bit of time to digest it. And funnily enough, I'm going to end on the unlucky, or lucky for some, it's my favourite number, 13 for the podcasts. So I don't know if that's a kind of indicator one way or the other. Did have a couple of ideas for other kind of good episodes, and I'm going to be launching more podcasts on my Hodgeythehack podcast network as time goes on. So some of those Scotland ideas that didn't quite make it this time, I'll probably explore in other ways. But for anybody that's enjoyed listening to the Tartan Daily then and watching it, thank you very much. I just had to do something. Scotland are at a major tournament now. Obviously, we're hoping we're going to get to another one, but there's absolutely no guarantee of that. So I just felt I had to do something, and there's been a chance to do some other cool stuff like the football trending show with Joe and all of that sort of stuff. So if you check out my Twitter at Hodgeythehack, then you'll find all of that stuff. This is the end of the Tartan Daily, but if you've enjoyed subscribing to it, and then I'm very, very grateful. What I would say is you can find all of my stuff on just by searching for Hodgeythehack on all of the socials. So that's HODGEY, the hack, HACK, all one word. You can find that on YouTube, which is where all of my podcasts live, especially the streams for them. So hit the wee bell and you'll hear about all the streams on there. Then on Twitter, of course, as all of my daily rantings, musings, all of that sort of stuff, general attempts to be funny, whatever it might be. Then I also do Instagram, although I'm not photogenic and don't use it that much. And then you can also find Hodgeythehack on YouTube as well. So if you just type that in there, usually I put all my streams on there, on Twitter and on YouTube, so as everybody can see them. Of course, what I'll be carrying on with soon will be my Hodge on Nodge podcast. That'll be first. But believe me, as the video at the top of my YouTube says, 2021 is the year that it all goes off. So prepare for more from me. But all that remains for me to do is to thank Stefan.
Pleasure, mate. Thank you.
Thank all of you guys for watching and listening. And to thank Scotland for giving us a few memories at a tournament. And all the Scotland fans in London, absolutely amazing. No Scotland, no party. But even though we're no there, the party still goes on.